I am cindyann, and I help successful divorced women to attract a healthy relationship where they feel deeply secure and fulfilled without the fear of making a mistake again or ending up alone.
I'm Abby. I'm a busy mom, and I help high-achieving single women overcome their fear of getting taken advantage of, stop pushing men away, and invite the secure and loving relationship of their own dreams.
I'm Emma, and at 46, I attracted my first healthy relationship after overcoming my chronic people-pleasing. I now help successful single women to find the loving and committed relationship they have always desired.
Join us for coffee and coaching conversations, where 3 experienced coaches answer your love and dating questions. See you there.
Welcome to Coffee Coaching Conversations, Love Dating, the podcast where love, coaching, and personal growth intertwine to empower you on your relationship journey. I'm cindyann in Seattle, Washington, and I'm with Emma in London and Abby in Ohio. And we have a really fun conversation to have with you today in regards to, I think we kind of talked about it being talking about yourself, how to act on a date, who to be, and how to get yourself kind of in the moment of the date to have experiences and emotions and feelings on the date so that the gentleman that you're sitting across from, especially if he's someone that you want to date again, can have some sort of experience, feeling of you, so that then you can connect to have that second date. So that's right. We also wanted to name this podcast. Let's see, I have it right here. Is he second date material? So we can get ourselves in space to get the second date. So who, Emma or Abby, who's going to chime in right away?
I can chime in. I love that. Well, and I like that you tied it into him being second date material too, because there's so much of women, especially when we're in this space where we're not in tuned with ourselves yet, or we haven't, kind of gotten there yet. I know all 3 of us, we were talking about this earlier, where we would get into interview mode where you're sort of like, is he this person? So you just like start checking off all these questions. You want to ask him all these things and find out, who he is. You can, nix him or keep him. And we don't get into our feelings. And, we talked a little bit about the experiential space as opposed to that head space that we try to get into with, running through our list with this new guy we just met. And how oftentimes it's a feature of us not being comfortable with ourselves and not being able to be receptive and open. So, and there's so much we can get into with this, so many tips for how to really step into that space. But I know for me, and I think all 3 of us can related to this, I would just fill up the conversation with anything but myself. So I like talk about, whether I was acting.
Noise.
Yeah, I like hated the silence, and it was like, honestly, it was because I was afraid that he would. I just didn't want it to turn on me. I didn't want it to be like about me, and I would start to feel into like whatever I was feeling insecure about, and him to like notice, like not wanting to be like noticed or like for myself because I wasn't really secure. I didn't really love myself in that at that time, and so I think one of my biggest tips, and this is really tough if you haven't gotten to that place yet though, of like self-acceptance, is literally practicing a little bit of silence, like just stepping back and like that energetic. We talk about the leaning back a lot, but oftentimes we don't really get into why it's so valuable and what it can feel like. It's just, I'm just leaning back, like, but it means that we're stepping back so that we can be receptive. We're stepping back so that we can give him some opportunity to come forward, and we're receptive to that. It's not just to like sort of sit back here and leave him, let him
Well, because we know, most importantly, that we in relationship, no matter in a female male relationship and wherever it goes into the future and however long you're with someone, the male is always going to be the giver because he is the provider, because he is the hunter, he is the gatherer. So he is going to be the giver. Even in conversation, when you're sitting across from this hot date at Starbucks and you sitting back and receiving any information that he wants to give you and or questions that he would like to give you, great. You're not being the person that's like da 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 da, and where do you work and why, and how many siblings do you have? No, you're back and you're receiving his questions. If you can get to receiving his questions, you're gonna get a third date.
Yeah, and that guy has a chance to feel something, as opposed to feel as if, okay, well, she was like, when you're up here and you're interviewing somebody, you're not feeling anything, and he's not having an opportunity to really get there, because that's what gets the second date, just like you said, cindyann. Yeah.
And I think when we were talking earlier, we were all basically saying that we didn't want to be seen because we hadn't done the inner work that we needed to do. And I think that's a very common thing that women experience. I've come across a lot of clients and a lot of women that sort of say, don't feel good enough, or don't love, or they don't say I don't love myself, but that's effectively what it is, and they just don't want to be seen. So I know that as a defense mechanism, I definitely asked a lot of questions. I like to think it didn't feel like an interview because I built rapport and all the rest of it, but I'm not the person to answer that question. You'll have to speak to some of them and I went on dates with. But yes, it was definitely a self-defense mechanism that I used. But I did the work, and then I also managed to meet someone who was very good at asking the right questions. So he would ask them in such a way that wouldn't feel quite so exposing, I guess, is the way to explain it. And because we'd had a little bit of messages on before we met up, and they were good messages, there was lots of information exchanged on those few messages before we actually started meeting face to face to date. There was already a certain amount of knowledge shared that meant there were certain topics that were very easy to talk about, because we'd exchanged enough information on those text messages that we could then elaborate on those topics and have those conversations that just didn't feel so scary or exposing or personal, or any of those things that made it work. So I had also done a lot of the inner work, but all of those things combined, wow, complete change.
I wonder if so it makes me wonder, though, if you had met your man that you're with, right? He sounds like, he's amazing with asking questions in ways that don't like leave you on the defense mode or anything like that. If you met him, like, I don't know, back, a few years earlier or something, do you think that you could have asked, maybe potentially misread his questions as like interrogation, or you know what I mean? Do you think it would have felt differently, if you'd met him earlier on?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say, but it's highly possible. Yeah, it's highly likely, I would say. But it's weird because I feel so disconnected from that person now. It feels like such a long time ago.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but yeah, probably.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
is something though, because you almost wonder what part, at what point is the man seeing us as somebody who's open, so he's
Yeah.
curious,
Mhm.
sort of, he sees you that way
Mhm.
already. So before you even meet, he's like, wow, there's this person I really want to get to know. I'm so curious about her, as opposed to
Mhm.
somebody who feels defensive, like she's maybe hiding something, or I don't know, and maybe I need to pry it open and see what's in there, and so then there's this push and pull of defensive,ness and feeling kind of off, with the questions and
Mhm.
the answers, so
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
I think with me it was deflection though. That's what I would do. I would deflect it. So I would turn the question around and make it onto a either completely neutral topic or back on them. So
Mhm.
because there's lots of different ways people can like change the conversation, isn't it? And I think for me it was definitely deflection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah. But we've all got our little tools that we fall back on.
And for me, I don't know, for all those listeners that follow us, and it's so great because you get a little bit of learning about our personalities, and we know from my personality on our podcast for Love and Dating, coffee coaching conversations, but I have a tendency to be a little bit of a talker. So I feel like I never am shy with you, my two fabulous partners in crime, as well as with you listeners. I feel like I'm always like da 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 da. Like I'm happy to add in anything that I have learned about love and dating because it's such a passionate topic for me. But you would not believe me on dates. So I'm going to go with my partner that I am with right now. Kurt and I have been together for 2 years. I had to literally practice. So it was our second date, and I knew on the second date I was going to have to talk because that was what I was not doing. I could not talk. I would just get on the date. I wouldn't freeze, but I would ask the questions and I would talk a little nonsense, but not really, but I would really let the guy talk. And quite frankly, I had dated a lot of narcissists, so they have no problem just talking nonstop. And when I was dating Kurt, who was the furthest thing from a narcissist, it was easy for me to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to really create some topics because he's going to sit back and want to learn about me. And I really want to go on this date with him, second date number 2. And I would love a third date. So I'm going to have to talk about myself. So I had to go in. So before he picked me up, and yes, it was very romantic. He came and picked me up for our second date. Before he picked me up, I had to go into the bathroom and look in the mirror and practice some conversations that I would have with him. If you can believe this, I mean, I could talk to a wall, and then on a date, I couldn't even have a conversation with him. So I was like, okay, when I talk to him about my children, these are the few things of the topics that I could mention and talk to him about. And da 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 da. When I talk to him about like my family that's in Austin, Texas, these are the things that I want to touch on. When I talk about finances and who I am and what I do and where I come from, I literally had to go family, my immediate family, extended family, and finances, because those are all things that you're going to want to learn about your partner kind of right off the get-go to see if there should even be a third date, right? And so I had to rehearse. Can you believe this?
I think it's amazing that you did that though.
Me too. And it does. It goes to show that we could like talk about we can be so chatty, or you could say all this stuff and ask him all these questions, and yet have such a hard time simply talking about yourself, and so many women, we're seeing that this is such a thing, that have the worst time talking about what we're experiencing and who we are. And so, and it like, that guy wants to know, about your work and your family and but it's in the context of who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So men,
Mm-hmm.
they're not necessarily as, caught up with these details about exactly, what you do, this and how you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
they want to know
Mm-hmm.
about you and how you're experiencing your
Mm-hmm.
life,
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, it's that.
And very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And so being able to step back, that is so key. I love that too. It's a great tip. Everybody listening,
Mhm.
go get some mirror time in before your date,
Yeah.
sit there and practice getting the words out and really
Yeah.
talking about yourself and how, what your day, that there's that classic, how is your
Mhm.
day? We get put on the spot and we're like, well, I did this,
Mhm.
and this, but they don't really
Mhm.
want a list of what we did. They want to know how we're feeling.
Which
No.
I totally want to chime in right now on that. And that is that, granted what I said, I was practicing the mirror because I wanted to share about, my history and who I was and da 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 da. But really, too, what the gentleman wants to hear that's sitting across from you is they want to hear that, oh my gosh, yesterday I was taking the dog for a walk at the lake. As I was going around the path, the sweet little bird flew out in front of my precious little dog, and my dog just started scrambling after him, and I had to let go of the leash, and then there goes the dog and the bird. And then you like are telling a story, and the gentleman is going, oh my gosh, I can feel you in this story. And I am so glad to hear that. So that's another way to share yourself with someone that you, and that's not first nature for us girls that we're hiding, that we didn't want to be seen. So if you can share your experience with a date, that
Yeah.
would be a really good thing.
Yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
linking to what you've both said, actually, I mean, that's the flip side. I mean, we're all people that don't want to be seen, but if that's uncomfortable, sometimes women will start saying, oh yes, and I've achieved this and I've done this and I've done the other. So as you said, Abby, you don't want it to be a list. It needs to be more of storytelling and feeling and experiences. So you're not competing with them. You're just sharing who you are, in a
Mhm.
in a very feminine way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
love that. Yeah, because there isn't, and that's, there's no possible way you're going to have a truly loving romantic relationship with somebody who you are sort of they're in competition with, and I don't know why we as women
Mhm.
sometimes get into that, where we feel like we
Yeah.
need to show how dynamic we are because that's somehow gonna, win him over or something.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I've heard women say this, and I think I've had that with subconsciously myself, where I'm sort of like, well, I'm so smart and I'm so accomplished, and look at me, and I've got my life together now, or something like that.
Mhm.
So, and that's not necessarily what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that they can
Yeah.
connect, and we have to be connected with ourselves first. There's a lot to
Mhm.
the topic. It feels like we could go dive so deep. I love this topic. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought it up, cindyann. So there's more, and maybe we'll be able to have a chance to dive even deeper into it in a future episode. But until then, if you'd like to find out how to break through your own specific barriers to experiencing the love that you've always wanted, be sure to click on our links in the description below to schedule a free one-on-one breakthrough session. All three of us would absolutely love to help you receive the loving, long-term relationship that you've always wanted. We are looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.